Jeffries sent himself back to a specific moment, or at least he was trying to send himself back to a specific moment, to warn the people of the FBI about the double.
We're all familiar with David Bowie's performance and Philip Jeffries' role or roles in Fire Walk with Me. And then, of course, many, many years later, Twin Peaks: The Return comes out. And this in the interim, this would be when Mark Frost would have the chance to sort of make sense or to interpret, along with the rest of us, what was happening there with Philip
Sure.
Jeffries through the film, through his books, etc. So, how about we start there? Why don't you try to maybe just make a speculation or a claim, or just raise the first point about
Okay.
what you think Frost is doing?
Well, by now, we all know a few things, and I'm going to challenge the chronology of a few things that we think we know. And at the very least, if I can't prove, well, this is why it could chronologically not happen the way that we see that it happens, at least we may be able to now doubt the fact that we understand the chronology as we thought we knew it. Okay. One of the things that I think is very interesting, Anthony, about what Mark Frost, Frost and Lynch do with the Jeffries character is they assign a level of time manipulation to his character. And what this does, this casts doubt over precisely what's happening at the FBI offices when he comes walking out of the elevator. And here's what I mean. When we're first witnessing that, especially if we include the deleted scenes, okay? But when we first witness it, we see a guy make a beeline while another guy is having a time displacement, a disorientation, right? That would be Cooper. Cooper, of course, he tells Cole that he's concerned about that day because of the dream that he had, particularly at that given moment, and that sends Cooper over to the surveillance camera in the hallway to look at it, and then he goes and checks the monitors. And what he's trying to make happen, I would assume, because we're not told, is what occurs in his dream, whereby he can see himself looking at the surveillance camera while he's looking at the surveillance footage himself, right? So he sees himself in real time, except that he's not there. So this does start to play with a either a superposition because he's not being assigned, right? A superposition whereby he can be at multiple points at one time, but until he's observed, he can't really be at one point. Or it's a non-locality, right? Whereby his location, it's always contingent on something else. And perhaps that contingency would be Jeffries because he does break this scene. Either way, that little walkthrough is brought to you for this. Our understanding of watching Fire Walk with Me is that Jeffries has come from the convenience store after being in the hotel lobby of Buenos Aires, being told that Judy left him a note. And now he's lobbying an accusation that we don't really understand at Agent Cooper the first time that we see Fire Walk with Me. Frost, of course, and this we see with our own eyes. Frost's he starts to ask himself, I would imagine it's Frost who starts to ask himself, how can we make this where the accusation about the timeline of Cooper sort of coincides with the finale where Cooper himself has now become the doppelganger, or rather, the doppelganger has assumed the role of Agent Cooper, right? So, in doing that, what they decide to add to this mix is the Jeffries that we know from the machine is capable of manipulating time to put you at a certain place. So, one of the very first things that I'd like to propose to sort of change how we behave in the scene is I think that Jeffries sent himself back to a specific moment, or at least he was trying to send himself back to a specific moment to warn the people of the FBI about the double. And I think he messed up. I think he overshot where he was in time, which is why he's confused about it. I think that's the rewrite that we're seeing, right? Where we're at now with the benefit of retconning the material. I think one of the
Mhm.
very first things that changes about that is that
So when you say he overshot, 1988 or 1989 is way too early because this would be before Cooper even heard of Laura Palmer. This would be before, obviously, Cooper entered Glastonbury Grove, before Mr. C, so called, makes his on screen appearance. And because there are intimations that, Jeffries might think that it's Mr. C in the Philadelphia office rather than Cooper.
right.
That kind of really can't be the case, at least chronologically, unless Mr. C is already emerging in different ways from
Oh,
Cooper.
well, look, in the real time
Could
of
be
when
right or
this
wrong.
happened, we had seen the finale already, so we know that the finale of season two was left with the double, with the shadow having taken the place of Agent Cooper in the world. We know that.
Yeah, but that was after Cooper visited Twin Peaks,
Sure.
and
So,
this scene is
but I'm
beforehand.
saying,
Yeah,
when you go to watch Firewalk with Me, if you do it in real time, you already realize what that finale is, and now you're watching
yeah,
this. So your mind may have made the leap, like, where did this guy come from for him to accuse him like that? Right? Your mind may have made the leap. What they've attached to it is,
and
yes,
I would agree. It does sound accusatory, not as opposed to just straight up confused or like disoriented.
yes,
I mean, it's possible that it's the latter, but it does seem, with the pointing, it does
it's
seem,
blatantly
yeah.
accusatory.
But go ahead.
Okay, so it's an interesting idea that perhaps Jeffries, who's never met Agent Cooper before, he's being introduced to Agent Cooper by Cole. Cole is saying, Cooper, this is the long lost Agent Jeffries. Cole came up with Jeffries, and Cole is the person who forwards Jeffrey's name to be the person in charge of the Blue Rose Task Force, and that type of thing. I don't think that there's anything conflicting necessarily with that information, but I try to keep these speculations about Jeffries within inside the framework of what we can witness with our own two eyes when we're watching
Yeah, but
the
I always
film.
wondered about that because it seemed like Cole was doing an introduction, but
Absolutely.
but I was always under the assumption that they had to have crossed paths in the
Well,
past. That's,
what? How about this? How about this? Perhaps. Well, of course they would have had to cross paths, Anthony, because he says, "Who do you think that is there?" He's being given an introduction at the same time while he knows this man's face.
Mhm.
Maybe he knows this man's face because he met him at the Dutchman's.